Read the disclaimers, and please use common sense.
Salutations, denizens of the internet. I'm Firebite27 as per usual, and today I've got a bit of a special video because, well, I'm doing a tutorial on how to use a 3D printer. Dale Tippett of the Optimus Primecast is a close friend of mine. I've mentioned him several times before on this channel, and I will undoubtedly mention him several times more in the future. Wait a minute, I've already said all of this. I uploaded this video already 2 weeks ago. Why am I back here? Oh yeah, because I didn't do a great job the first time. That's a good reason, actually. All jokes aside, denizens of the internet, I'm going to be frank with you. My video explaining how to use a 3D printer from about 2 weeks ago was not great. There's a lot of stuff that I should have explained to you that ultimately got left on the cutting room floor, and really, you only have me to blame for it. Now, to grant myself what little grace I can, I will say that I was up against a bit of a time crunch. I left home in order to go on my vacation the same day that video was uploaded, and the editing process only finished less than 12 hours before it had to go live at 10 o'clock. Even still, this only excuses the content I had to cut out, not the stuff that was already in the video, like how I jarringly switched subjects from how you shouldn't be touching the print while it is printing to talking about how you shouldn't manually unspool the plastic filament, otherwise it'll get tangled. And personally, I feel as though I failed each and every person who watched that original video by omitting some pretty fundamental information for beginners. This is admission that I can do better. And to prove it, let's roll this all the way back to the beginning. This time, I'm properly explaining how to use a 3D printer, which is coincidentally now an episode of Brushing Up, a sub-series of episodes for my main show, It Figures, that talk about customizing action figures, because believe it or not, 3D printing, actually pretty important to customizing action figures. 3D printers are really cool. They are machines that can print out literally anything that you imagine. They can be used to make anything, from cosplay props to action figure accessories to those ugly blind box LaBarf bag things that I see on people's shopping bags occasionally. And before we go any further, and I do mean any further into this video, I want to clear up the biggest misconception about 3D printing. 3D printers are not expensive. Are they super cheap? No, not in the least. But at the same time, you don't have to pay a lot in order to get a good quality product. For reference, the cheapest iPhone I could find was a $672 refurbished iPhone from Walmart before tax. Though it certainly can cost you a little more if you get one brand new. Given the larger size of all 3D printers compared to phones, you might think that a good 3D printer will run you anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000. No. Oh man, if you were hoping that I was gonna say that it was anywhere even close to the $700 price tag of that refurbished iPhone, well, I hate to burst your bubble, but the price that Dale and I paid for the Ender 3 we currently have running in our church office is, well, closer to a quarter of that price. Yes. Yeah, speaking in purely financial terms, 3D printers are way more accessible than most people assume they are. For hobbyists like me, and presumably you, a good 3D printer rarely runs you more than $300. Even the Filament is super affordable. Like this 2-pack of 1 kilogram each of black and white PLA filament is less expensive than a Hasbro Deluxe Class Transformer. Hilariously, a lot of the time a single kilogram spool of PLA filament is less than half the cost of an extra large cartridge of ink for an HP printer. Now with that myth busted, let's get on to the important part of the video. Actually using the 3D printer. I already built the Ender 3 that Dale and I bought live on stream, so if you want to see the process of building a 3D printer, go and check that out. Links in the iCard above. Once you've finished building the printer, you might think our next step is to move on to actually printing something. The next step of the process is leveling the build plate / bed. Please note that the terms bed and build plate will be used interchangeably in this video, however it might not be the proper terminology. Like I said, I'm a hobbyist. All you need to know is that it's where the 3D printer actually does the printing. To illustrate why this is important, let's pretend that this pencil is the nozzle of the 3D printer, and the pad of paper is the printer bed. Well, 4 corners of the bed are level, it's like I'm drawing on a smooth surface. The line is consistent. A bed that isn't level will result in a line that isn't properly applied, so it just ends at a certain point. Albeit this isn't the best demonstration of that concept. Mostly because when the plastic doesn't make contact with the bed, it actually results in a pile of plastic pubes. And if the bed is properly adjusted, but it's too far away from the nozzle, then, well, you don't get anything on the plate. But again, the result is more of a plastic tumbleweed. Now, leveling the bed of a 3D printer is a complicated process. On the surface, it seems like one of those things that you just have to develop an intuition for. You can't really see how far away the nozzle is from the printer bed, at least not on the microscopic scale the 3D printer works on. Well, I guess not microscopic, but you get my point. Fortunately, humans have already developed something that can help us judge the distance without having to use our eyes. A regular pad of sticky notes. These will help us translate the distance between the printer bed and nozzle from something we can see to something we can feel. What you'll want to do is enter the movement controls on your 3D printer and press Auto Home. This will bring your printer back to its default state with the nozzle up against the bed. From there, slide the sticky note between the printer bed and the nozzle. You'll want to turn the knob on every single corner of the printer bed with righty-tighty, bringing the printer bed down lower away from the nozzle, and lefty-loosey, bringing it up closer to the nozzle. This will translate to the amount of resistance you'll feel while pulling on the sticky note. You'll want to find the sweet spot on each corner of the printing bed where the post-it isn't moving freely without any resistance whatsoever, but at the same time, it's not moving with so much resistance that you're afraid it'll rip. And always do the process twice. You don't know how moving one corner will affect all the others. Now, I can practically hear what you're thinking. Okay, now that we have that adjusted, surely we can 3D print now. No. I hate to break it to you, but we haven't actually installed anything that the 3D printer can actually, print with. Fortunately, this process is relatively simple. All you really need to do is go to the Change Filament set in your printer and select the kind of plastic that you want to swap in. For the easiest time getting your filament into the 3D printer, please cut the end of it at an angle like so. That way the filament rod actually has an easier time of getting into the hole when it's fed into the hole by the filament extruder. Cut it at the opposing angle and you risk it coming out the wrong way and getting all over the place. Believe me, this happened to me once. It was a huge mess that just got all over the place, and it was a mess to try and untangle it all and get it back into the printer. Worse still, sometimes the filament breaks mid-print and it gets itself tangled or unaligned that way. Both broken filament, tangled filament, and unaligned filament all result in prints that are incomplete, as the print on the left of your screen obviously demonstrates. And don't manually unspool and re-spool the plastic. It's tempting to do in order to help the 3D printer along, but it's unnecessary, A, and B, it results in the filament getting tangled. And with all that out of the way, now we are ready to actually go and 3D print something. First things first, you'll need an STL file. That's basically the thing that the 3D printer will make. You can either make them yourself, or you can get them on this free website called Thingiverse. Thingiverse is a website that offers a huge repository of 3D printable items. If you want something on the website, you can get it here for absolutely free. And if you're so inclined, leave a tip for the designer. However, once you have your STL file, don't ask me what that's an acronym for, I do not know. You can then download a slicer program from the internet and use it to create a path for the 3D printer to follow. Some programs are even nice enough to turn the path into a little video for you to watch. However, a lot of these programs aren't just drag and drops. You have to adjust the settings in a lot of them. Now, because both my 3D printer is a Creality model and because it's just easier to use, I will be showing you how to adjust settings in the Creality slicer. Also, in case you decided to put this video on as background noise and didn't actually decide to watch it, you can download the Creality slicer on Creality's website. The most important parts are the sliders at the top and the 2 boxes to check at the bottom. The top slider adjusts layer height, which in layman's terms is just how many times the printer is going to have to move vertically and apply new layers to the print, and the bottom slider controls density, aka how much of the finished print is plastic and how much of it is just hollow air pockets. Now listen to me closely on this one. Don't set the second slider to 100%. That is wasteful, and it's gonna take a lot more time to finish the print that way. Believe me, in my experience, all you really need is 20% infill in order to create a stable structure. And for the last two at the bottom, these are the bed adhesion and support structures. The bed adhesion basically creates a little plastic skirt for the item, which exists to ensure that the nozzle doesn't tear the print off the bed. Support structures, meanwhile, just ensure that the print has something to print on top of in case there's like, you know, a bend in the middle of the item. Now, in most situations, the bed adhesion is a debatable waste of plastic. Fairly large items will require very little bed adhesion because, well, they are the bed adhesion. That's how much surface area there is. Smaller and thinner items, however, will need bed adhesion because, well, they're smaller and thinner. There's a higher likelihood that the nozzle will just tear them off the printer bed. However, the support structure is, in my opinion, mandatory for the most part. There are a lot of times where you need the extra support. Anyways, once as you click the button to generate a path for the printer to follow, you'll then be able to find a button at the bottom that allows you to download the file containing all the information the printer needs in order to print out your item, as well as a small estimate for the amount of time and material required in order to make it. The file birthed from the Slicer program is known as a G-code file, and you just need to slap that sucker onto a microSD cartridge and then take it out of your computer and then plug it into your printer. The next step of the process is to scroll down through the menu and select the Print from Card option on the menu. Then simply scroll down through the menu to the file that you want to print and select it, and then start the printing process. From there, you can manually adjust the printing speed. However, be warned, raising the printing speed can also decrease the quality of the final print. Furthermore, do not touch the print in any way whatsoever during the printing process. No punches, no slaps, no flicks, no taps, no gentle caresses in order to try and lure it into a false sense of security. It will result in several of the layers printing out of alignment and it will just make the final product look ugly. Once it's done, sure, touch it all you want. Remove it from the bed and sand it, do whatever you want to it. Just please, for the sake of all that sleeps and festers in both Riley and Unknown Kadath, just do not touch your 3D print when it is printing. Believe me, your patience will be rewarded 100-fold with some of the coolest things you could ever imagine owning. I know mine certainly has, and in fact doubly so because a lot of the stuff that I've printed has been stuff that I originally designed. From my blacksmithing playset for Solus Prime, to my popsicle stand for Transformers, to the many weapons and other accessories that I've made for them all. I also have plenty of notes and information for you on how you could make your own accessories on a program like Blender. However, that would require going into a long-winded tutorial on how to use Blender, and let's face it, there's only enough room for one tutorial in this video. And hey, I think I'll do it someday because pulling a Huggies and showing you how it's actually made sounds like a lot of fun. And that covers all that I wanted to say about 3D printing, at least for beginners. Is there more about 3D printing that I could say? Yes. But is the rest of the knowledge beginner friendly? No, not at all. I want to encourage people to try out 3D printing for themselves, not just for toy collectors like myself, but for other nerds like cosplayers and the like. The list of 3D printing's applications are truly limitless, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't tried it out for yourself. That being said, this is Firebite27 over and out.